Frank, you are pushing back against this idea that like CJ Stroud has somehow hit a third-year wall. And you instead are saying that it's the Texans who are failing CJ Stroud. Tell me why.
I think this is right now one of the most not talked about stories going on in the NFL. What have I heard the past 3 days? Oh, the Cincinnati Bengals have totally failed Joe Burrow. They can't protect him. They didn't put anybody else around him. Think about the Texans versus the Bengals. The Texans have the worst offensive line in football, far worse than Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. The Cincinnati Bengals have far better receivers than the Houston Texans have. The Cincinnati Bengals have far better running game than the Houston Texans have. Okay? Like what the Houston Texans, who are a miserable franchise, by the way, before CJ Stroud got there, is doing to Stroud is borderline criminal. They are ruining this kid. I have all the respect for CJ Stroud, and it's rare where I just say, you know what? It's not your fault at all. I think it's maybe not 0% on CJ Stroud, but it's pretty close to 0. I just look at this situation as, what can he do? We've watched that offense now for not just 2 weeks, but a full year. They can't block for him. They can't run to help him out. Other than Nico Collins, they don't have any difference makers in the passing game yet. Maybe some of these rookies develop. I get that. But it is just, they went into this season, look, they traded Laramie Tunsil. They got rid of a couple other linemen. It's like, our line was so bad, we just had to destroy it. Okay, I get that, but you didn't do anything to improve it. You didn't really pour any resources into fixing your line. You hired an offensive coordinator, and that's great, but you also need some horses to run this offense. I just think what the Texans are doing to CJ Stroud is going to start becoming a story. I don't think the Texans are going to be very good this year. I just think they have so many deficiencies that they're not going to be able to fix it. And then we're going to be saying, I've even heard it already this season. Oh, it's CJ Stroud. Maybe he was just a fluke, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And people, I don't think that's the case at all. I just think we're watching in real time a player be absolutely failed by the organization that drafted him. They are not doing right by him. And if CJ Stroud does not make it, if he doesn't live up to that promise he showed his rookie year, I'll blame the Texans in this era for not doing enough to help him.
Did you think that the Commanders failed Jaden Daniels his rookie year with the people that were put around him?
No, because I think that you can only do so much in one offseason, but this is multiple off seasons. And the Texans knew after CJ Stroud's first year, look, we have an elite quarterback on his rookie deal. Every other team goes into this kind of warp speed mode of let's build around him like the Commanders did this season. They went and traded for Debo. They traded for Laramie Tunsil, made other improvements within the draft. I don't see that from the Texans. What have the Texans done to help him? I mean, they lost 2 of their 3 receivers in the offseason. It really did. I traded a 7th round pick for Christian Kirk. Like, okay. Like, I look
drafted
at
2.
They did, but depending on receivers outside the first round.
2.
They did.
No, I totally get that. They have reworked their offensive line, but to your point, it hasn't worked, right? It is early. It's 2 games. It has not worked. They brought in the new OC. They got rid of Bobby Slowick, who, look, 2 years ago, Bobby Slowick was interviewing for head coaching jobs.
Supposed to be the man, right?
So, yeah, they decided it didn't work and they tore it down. I'm with you, Frank. It has not worked yet. You point out they've scored 2 touchdowns on 18 possessions, not including a kneel down. One of those touchdowns came on a short drive after a long punt return. There was another one, the Nick Chubb touchdown. It looked as if the Buccaneers let them score to get the ball back late Monday night. Todd Bowles was pressed on that today, and he would. There's an example of a coach that won't say it on the podium. He would not admit whether they did or didn't. It didn't matter. They scored. So I think they've tried. But I agree with you.
I don't think they have.
So far,
I don't think they have, honestly. I'll be honest.
In some ways, I almost feel like they tried too hard. Because I think that when you look at it, when they got rid of Bobby Slowick and brought in Nick Caley, and I know it's still early for Nick Caley, I think they overreacted to 1 year on offense when really the offensive line to me is the main issue the Texans have. And I wouldn't even say that they're not doing anything about it necessarily. I would more say that the NFL has an offensive line problem. A lot of teams are being impacted by this. The Texans are one of them and probably the most, I don't know about the most egregious, but they are probably up there in the top 5 or so most egregious situations where if you do not have an offensive line, you can't run the rest of your offense. Yes, there's probably going to be some changes because there's an explosiveness that came from that Shanahan scheme when you still had Bobby Slowick in there that you're probably not going to see with this new design that we're getting from Nick Caley. But I think that, if anything, okay, if you wanted that, why did you get rid of Bobby Slowick when 50% of his years were great, I would say. I think that it was and I don't know all of the behind the scenes dynamics in terms of the emotions of what went wrong, but I think there is an element of that. Now, I will say that CJ Stroud seems to know something he doesn't want to say, because if you watch his podium today on Wednesday, there were a lot of times when the media was asking him questions and asking about his process and, hey, what do you do after a game like this? And he was like, look, I know that your job as the media is to ask me about my process when we lose and to celebrate and ask me why I'm doing great when I win. I'm not going to give all of those reasons up here, but I have my reasons why I think of each of these things happened. He kind of pulled that line that we often see from coaches and players, that he doesn't think all of those non-touchdown possessions were because of the same reasons. I also got the sense from some of what he was saying about not getting a lot of reps with his receivers that some of this could be a communication element of like, hey, if you throw the ball where it's supposed to be and the guy's not there, then that looks like you had an incompletion, but we know that that can be more than that. And so I think there's more than that. I would also say it's been 2 weeks and they played the Rams and the Bucs, both of whom I think are likely to make the playoffs. So let's give it a second.
But it is not just 2 weeks. It's 19 weeks because they were this team last season too. Like that offensive line was trash.
But they made
year.
changes since then.
It's number 30 and no good ones though. Yes, they got players, but Ed Ingram, all of the guys they acquired were basically in the bottom third of Pro Football Focus's grades. And I know PFS grades are not gospel, but they basically got retreads. They didn't really, the Vikings were proactive. The Bears were proactive for their quarterbacks. The Texans, I thought, were very, well, we're going to trade Laramie Tunsil and just bring a bunch of guys in and figure it out. I just worry about this whole situation. If you look at the Houston Texans offense right now, Nico Collins is awesome. I think CJ Stroud is still awesome. The other 9 guys are all below average. I think that's just the truth. Like, I don't know you have another above average starter on offense with CJ Stroud. And I think that's why we're seeing CJ Stroud struggle so much. And some of it is on him. He's probably pressing. He's not playing well under pressure, all that kind of stuff. That he does bear some responsibility for this. I put it more on the front office. I just don't think they're doing enough for him right now.
A couple of points there.
That you said,
Number one, real quick here, Jori. Number one, the Commanders and the Bears so far, the Bears and the Vikings did spend a lot of money on name guys that haven't necessarily gelled those two offensive lines through 2 weeks. I'm with you here on the parts. I think they're recycling veteran parts there to a degree in Houston. I also go back to the conversation that I had with CJ Stroud that we aired here leading into week 1. And I wish it had been one of those 30-minute off-season sit-downs, because part of it almost felt like a mental health conversation was brewing, because he kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit and let us in and talked about how, I guess, some people think I'm not as good a quarterback as I was my rookie year, and I still think I'm a good quarterback, and I don't know what people want from me, if they want me to be perfect. And part of me sitting in this chair went like, whoa, like, what do you mean, dude? People think you're great. And we didn't have time. There's a sponsorship element to the interview. Like, we're on a clock here. We didn't have time to truly explore it. But it was a little bit of a window, I think, into what he's going through right now with the new system. And clearly, this pressure to, in year 3, when you're supposed to take off, still on that rookie contract, heading into year 4, next year you get paid. And he's going to get paid. Like, this is the year where it's supposed to happen. And I think he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders to make it happen. But at the same time, he knew, Frank, that it's a work in progress.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to be clear. I think CJ Stroud is awesome. I think he is one of the 10 best quarterbacks.
Right. No,
in the NFL.
we
I think
agree.
if we are redrafting the NFL, I think CJ Stroud is one of the. He's a first round pick. Let's put it that way. I have a world of respect for CJ Stroud, who, like your interview showed, he's one of the most thoughtful guys out there. I think he's one of the most talented guys out there. Yes, it does take time, but if we're going to sit here and complain about the Bengals doing Joe Burrow wrong, we should be spending more time talking about the Texans doing CJ Stroud wrong, because he's in a much worse situation than Joe Burrow's been in.
That point I'll give you. I don't think that the Bengals are doing Joe Burrow wrong anymore. I think you could have said that like 3 years ago, maybe. I don't really think they still are, especially when you look at the weapons they got him. They got all their 3 guys back. I think what I would ask you, Frank, is if you were the Texans, what 3 or so realistic moves would you have made this past offseason? I mean, like, it's not like you can just pull all the best players from all the teams and get every coach in. So, because as you mentioned, like, Chicago, you think did plenty for Caleb Williams. Well, how well is that working out so far?
Yeah, not well. I'll give you that. But there were people of it. Drew Dahlman was available. Like they went out and got Joe Tooney, who's a very, very good player. They didn't trade the world to get him. I do think, and you know what, this goes back to, I've gotten so much of a hard time for the Will Anderson trade, right? Part of the ramification of that is he didn't have a first-round pick this year to use on any offensive help for CJ Stroud. Like, I think they just could have allocated their resources a little bit differently and been more aggressive in fixing the line instead of just, look, they felt they needed to trade Laramie Tunsil for whatever reason. And I get that. Fine, cool, your line stunk. But they didn't do anything proactive to fix this. They didn't go out and spend a lot of money. A lot of teams spent a lot of money in free agency on offensive linemen. Why didn't the Texans? Why did the Texans use some of their draft capital to move, get guys? Like, I just, especially with the offensive line and receivers too, I think the receivers are going to come along. I like Higgins. I like Noel. But I just wonder, they should have been a little more aggressive doing right by CJ Stroud, who, again, I think you could make the argument he has a worse supporting cast in the NFL right now. And I love Nico Collins. He's great. But what else? Like, what supporting cast
Did you think the defense
right now
is
than the
that
Houston
bad?
Texans? No. Defense is good. I'm talking about offensively. Defense is great. Defense
to me,
is
I think when you want to support a young quarterback, it's not about. Right. They have some injuries, but like I go back to what the Bears tried to do with Caleb Williams in his first year by giving him this great trio of receivers. And I don't actually think that's the best way to support a young quarterback. I get that CJ's not as young as he used to be. I think the best way is give them a great run game, give them a great defense, and take some of the things off so that they can go make those plays in the biggest moments because they haven't had all of the pressure on their shoulders early on. So I'm not saying that the Texans have done everything right. I just think that there is a sense of like, I don't think that the Texans would be better off if they didn't get Will Anderson and they got an offensive player this year who may or may not have panned out and probably wouldn't have been ready immediately.
Probably not. No, you're right. Will Anderson's awesome. No question about that.
And he's a culture setter as well on the defensive side of the ball. I agree. We also agree they're 0-2 and they need to win this week. I think we all agree on that. To be continued. And I also love that Jori gives people homework that has to be answered immediately. Frank, what are the 3 moves that you should do? I love that, and I'm like
I'm still waiting.
I love it. Like
Frank, texting Frank at like 1 in the morning.
Give me your battle
where's
plans
your homework
right now.
My homework.
Coming
I
up
didn't do
next.
homework at school, Joey. You're not getting it out of me either.